My conversation today on Inside the Wounds is with Gabe Mangold. He's the lead guitarist of Enterprise Earth and Dead Icarus. Today we're talking about how creativity is something that can be trained and realizing that inspiration can be found within rather from outside sources. I'm Joaquin Rodriguez, and this is Inside the Wounds with Gabe Mangold. I know you all just finished up the headlining tour for Death and Anthology. How did that go?
It was sick, man. It was a lot of fun. It was all the shows were fun. The crowds were great. We were battling like a million other tours in the States in the spring. Like there were so many conflicting shows and everyone and their mother. I've never toured in such a busier spring before, but despite that, it was still a lot of fun. It was a really great time. So yeah, I was stoked.
That's awesome. And Enterprise Earth is a bluegrass band, right?
Yes, a bluegrass band.
No, all joking aside, man. I mean, to be honest, something that's really impressed me with Enterprise Earth is the band's ability to hit the ground running with the new frontman change. Like, it felt seamless, and I have to credit leadership for that. Like, that's a sign of great leadership and, of course, choosing the right person. Like,
Sure.
You want to kind of walk me through, like, how that process went?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was a crazy situation that we went through with all that because, it was very sudden. It wasn't expected. It was a bummer, but, when all that was going down, we're like, man, like, I don't, like, is this the end of the band? Dan's the last founding member. He's the face of the band. So many people resonate with him as that. And but fortunately, like, we had toured with Travis prior in his old band, Eighth Year. And when I was sitting thinking, like, all right, what the hell are we going to do? Like, who are we going to get? Like, Travis was actually the only person that came to mind. And I hit him up and he sent me some videos and just like crushed it. And then we were like, okay, cool. Like, let's do this tour, like, as a fill-in, of course, and because things were still uncertain at the time, we weren't sure if we're going to get Dan back or not. So, but Travis comes in and absolutely slays it. Like, and, time goes on and it's clear that Dan will not be joining us, again. We have to part ways with him. And Travis, he just really stepped into it and just owned it. And now, like, initially as a fill-in, you're trying to fill the shoes of the person that you're filling in for, right? You're trying to emulate them. You're trying to do a good job of representing them, But then over time, Travis, obviously he comes into his own and starts incorporating his own thing. And now with Death and Anthology, like, the transition is fully, complete now.
Right.
It feels great. It's been a hard thing. It's still hard going through a vocalist change. Is not easy, especially when it's the last original member and, the vocalist on 4 albums and 2 EPs. But the response has been amazing. Our fan base is incredible. It's honestly been, I'm just very touched and very humbled and very appreciative that our fans are still supportive of us, and it gives us the energy to keep going and keep creating music and keep growing and building.
Totally. And I want to go off one of the things you mentioned there. So what was going through your mind when you first found out the news that the band was probably going to have to go through a huge, significant change?
I was in my camper trailer at the time in my buddy's yard, and I just like literally went outside and cried. Because it was this band's my baby. I devote my whole life to it, my life has like literally revolved around it for, it's 7 years now, over 7 years now. And at that time it was 5 years, but still it was like, man, like, fuck, is this going to end? Is all this work I just did, is it all for nothing? All those existential thoughts that one has when they're faced with a disaster or a tragedy. No, I'm glad we were able to figure it out and keep going. And, I feel like it just feels like we're just getting started, which is cool. And I'm very excited for the next music we're about to write as well.
Yeah, totally. And like I mentioned, like, I feel like that whole transition was seamless. And again, like, give credit to where credit's due. That I think that comes down, like, to leadership. And I don't know if that's you, because you mentioned Dan was the last founding member. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it seems like you wear a lot of hats in the band.
Yeah.
And is one of those hats happen to be a leadership role?
Yes. And so basically when I joined, I started to take over more roles of the band, not like taking over, like I was grabbing them. It happened that, okay, I'm the best person for this job. And like, okay, I'll do it. Talk to the guys. Okay, Gabe, you can handle this. Gabe, you can handle that. You can do this. And before you know it, I was like the admin for the band. I was writing all the music. That all happened very quickly. Now I'm the band's manager. I manage us as well. And it's so yes, and like I'm a producer, you know, like primary songwriter, even though Travis, Dakota, Brandon, they all write as well. Of course, we split writing credits on DAA 25 or 4 ways evenly because it was so collaborative. But yes, like I guess in terms of I am the band's admin, the manager, the leader. I kind of hate saying that because it feels like a little weird or something like that. But yes, for all intents and purposes, like, you know, I'm the one where everything comes through. Yeah.
So you mentioned band manager. So you actually mentioned a lot of stuff that you're doing right now with Enterprise. So how do you keep yourself disciplined, making sure everything gets taken care of?
Just finding efficient workflows, you know, just staying organized, staying communicative with everyone, whether it be my band or other industry professionals, other bands, managers, labels, etc., so on and stuff like that. And yeah, just trying to just be as transparent and on top of things, you know, as possible. Like, you know, staying on top of emails, staying on top of messages, on top of opportunities, top of everything. Which it can be a lot, you know, honestly, it can be a lot. And sometimes it feels like it's too much, you know, and I got to ask for help, as anyone has to do. You know, we all need help every now and then. So, but yeah, it's hard, but I love it at the same time. You know, it's, we're very fortunate to live in a day and age where bands can have quite literally total control of every aspect of their business. They can grow themselves. They can grow online. You know, they can get their own tours. They can manage themselves. They can get their own distribution. And not that managers and labels obviously are still important and still have their place, but the tides are changing of the guard, if you will, and it's really cool to be able to do that. But you can't be afraid of doing the work. You know, it's a lot more work if you're handling all that stuff.
Absolutely. And I gotta say, I appreciate how honest you were. You mentioned that when you found out the news, you know, about Dan, you know, you sat and cried. I appreciate the honesty with that. I guess when Dan had left, like, were you all already working on new music, like, already? Like, did anything have to pivot, or how was that situation like?
Well, we were just starting the Chosen album campaign. It was honestly like 2 weeks before our first tour back from COVID was direct support for Lorna Shore, which was huge because they were just blowing up from that EP. You know, it was the start of them blowing up. You know, still playing 300 to 700 cap rooms, but obviously selling them all out. But that was huge. You know, and yeah, we were releasing the first single, Where Dreams Are Broken, on that tour, and we were just about to start this campaign with this album that we were so damn proud of, and then it's like, boom, vocalists peacing out, you know, and it's like, whoa, fuck. Yeah, it was really hard, you know, it was so hard to go through that. And again, that's just like a testament, like, couldn't have done it without Travis, couldn't have done it without Brandon and Dakota and my boys, like our whole team, just, and our manager at the time, our label, everyone stuck with us, you know, and believed in us. And, you know, it was the whole team that helped us power through. So whether I couldn't have done it by myself. So certainly.
Oh, absolutely. Well, again, credit where credit's due. I think it's beautiful to see that y'all came together. I mean, y'all earn your reputation, right? Like, and that y'all have put in the work. Everything's been proven, and I'm glad you all were able to make that transition and just, like I said, hit the ground running, because y'all are killing it still. That's beautiful to see. And you mentioned being a producer, and what got you interested in being a producer?
It was interesting because over COVID, we came back. We were in Europe when the whole travel ban thing happened. We were on tour in Europe with like 3 shows left, so we had to rush home. We had a tour with Icarus Murder in the States lined up right after that, and had a whole bunch of merch bought for it already. So like we were like very quickly tens of thousands of dollars in debt, you know, like on top of, you know, all the other crazy shit that was happening. And there were so many people in that position, you know, so many people were fucked in that situation. It's just the way it was. But as far as getting into producing, okay, we're like, okay, we're obviously going to be home for a while. We can still write music, you know, we can still create something, but we don't have any budget to go to a studio like we did for Luciferus, the album prior.
Right.
And I had, you know, done all our pre-pros prior to this, you know, pre-pro demos. None of them were worthy of releasing, but I was like, hey guys, like, let me try. Like, let me try to do this, and let's see how it goes. And if it sucks, then we'll have to fork out money to pay someone to mix it, you know, and it is what it is. Right? So we recorded everything ourselves, and I mixed it, and we were just like so stoked. And that was the foundation of Bones EP. That was the first thing that I produced, mixed, mastered, all the way around. The first thing that we did entirely ourselves. I recorded guitar and bass at home. Dan did his vocals at home. Brandon did his drums at home. And then I mixed it in my trailer. And then after that, we were like, oh, like, okay, we can do this. I was like, I can do this. I got a lot of work to do. I got improving to do. But it's like, we can make this happen, And it was just, that was a very like liberating and fulfilling thing. And here we are now. I'm like making my living off of, touring and now studio work, which is like really cool. So at the end of the day, I'm grateful for that whole experience, because we actually had studio time scheduled with another producer prior to COVID, and then COVID just ruined everything. We're like, sorry, dude, we literally can't afford to do this, and he was very understanding, thankfully. So it was, I'm grateful for that whole miserable fucking process that ended up being a beautiful thing. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, in desperate situations, you end up evolving, right, and developing new skills. And with that being said, like, are you self-taught on the producer side of things, or did you have like a mentor throughout the process, or how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, yes, like self-taught, mostly self-taught. I would watch lots of Creative Live and Nail the Mix sessions and just YouTube videos in general, as one does with learning anything these days by themselves. Consult the Google, consult the YouTube, I guess if I had a mentor, it would be Jason Sukoff, who we recorded Luciferus with, because he's the only producer that I've worked with, and he's one of my favorite producers, produced some of my favorite records of all time. It was an honor to work with him, and we actually still go back to do to record drums with him as well, just because he has like a nice room and all the nice mics and preamps and all the nice shit. But I learned so much from watching him during Luciferus too, like, oh, like, this is how you get this to sound this way. This is what you got to do this. This is how you record guitars this way. This is how you do this, so on and so forth. This is what it takes to make a top tier professional album. So like my eyes were open to how to create the standard for professionally produced music. And now it's like, okay, that's my standard. If it ain't as good as that, I am putting it up, so yeah.
And like, do you still reach out to Jason like for like input? Like, do you send him like rough demos like before you start doing the final mix and master?
Yeah, like I'll send him, like I'll finish a mix. I'll be like, hey, like I'll ask him for mix notes. Sometimes he gives me something, sometimes he doesn't, and that's fine. But we talk frequently. He just texted me like literally 10-15 minutes ago. We were just sharing memes, honestly, because he's a hilarious, wonderful person. I love him. But we talk all the time outside of like just studio music stuff. We're just good pals, which is awesome.
What's really fascinating, it seems like everybody that I know in the scene is really close to Jason.
Yeah.
Like, they've learned a lot from Jason. I've never met Jason in person or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about him that just, it feels like so many people in the scene revolve around him, learn from the guy, and just really look up to him, like not only just as like a teacher, a mentor, but as a friend?
Yeah, he's just got this magic about him. Honestly, he's just got the sauce. That's all I can say. He's just a very in addition to being stellar at what he does, he's clearly born to do what he does. He's just like a amazing person, like, and very funny, like lovable guy, very fun to be around. He makes the recording process fun. And he's got a wonderful personality, in addition to being an incredibly skilled producer, engineer, mixer, everything.
That's awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong, he also works with Mark, right?
Audio Hammer was him and Mark. That was like the origins of Audio Hammer Studios, was him and Mark together. And then, Mark went his separate ways to do his own thing, but they still will collaborate on certain things, like maybe Mark records drums or Jason mixes or vice versa or something like that. But yeah, they're still good homies. They still work together in some capacity on a regular basis.
Yeah, they're both super nice dudes. Yes, I haven't met any of them in person, but any interaction I've had like via like DM or things that I remember like one time I was in the studio with Jordan at his home studio, and Jason like FaceTimed him out of nowhere, and it kind of to what you said, it was all just funny conversation.
Yep.
And that was like my first introduction to Jason.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, I immediately got a sense for who he really is, and that's super dope.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, so I know for a while you had your home studio set up, in your trailer. And has it been easier to write and record now that you have more of like a traditional home studio setup?
Yeah, no, it's been great, honestly. Like I'm in my studio, my apartment right now, and no, it's transformed my workflow. It allows me to, we're actually, the guys are coming here next month for a writing session, which will be great. And it's been awesome. Like I just finished this 3-4 months ago at the end of January. I finished writing and recording the next Dead Icarus LP was my other band, and that'll be coming out later this year. That was the first body of work done in here, written, recorded, everything done in here, except for vocals. I flew to California to Alex to do vocals. But no, I'm so excited to continue creating in this new space. And now, I've home base is here now for us, for Enterprise, and the guys can come here. Like, we're having a writing session. It's like we don't have to rent an Airbnb like we used to have to do and spend thousands of dollars and travel. I mean, the guys still have to get here for travel, but it just makes things easier and way more comfortable. And I'm more comfortable. I had a lot of fun traveling in my 7 years of doing it, but the time had come for me to settle for sure.
Nice. And if I'm not mistaken, it's Colorado, right? That's the new home base.
Del Norte, Colorado, middle of fucking nowhere, Colorado, and I love it.
That's awesome. Well, hey, we're from Colorado too, except we're up north. We're in Fort Collins.
Right. Yeah, very cool.
That's dope. And hell, that's actually where you and I first met, was in Fort Collins when you were touring with Carnifex.
Oh shit! Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So that was our first introduction, and it's kind of interesting how things came full circle, right? Because Jordan so happened to be. Well, okay. Fun fact: that show is where Jordan and I officially became, I guess, more professional peers, I guess you could say, because before it was more of like the fan interaction, right? But this was the time where we kind of built that relationship. Then he became our producer, became a mentor of mine. I mean, the rest is history at this point. But kind of cool how things come full circle. Second EP, he brings you into the project. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And so are you someone that gets inspired by the environment that you're in? Like, I've heard the stories about writing in a cabin, Walmart parking lots, Yep. So, yeah. So, I mean, what type of inspiration? Well, let me rephrase that. Like, do you feel different types of inspiration, like just by this totally different studio space?
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, I don't like to limit myself to like, okay, like I can only write if I'm in like this desert fucking oasis or an island or some shit like that. Because that implies that your creativity and your creative output is a destination, when ultimately your creativity isn't here. It's in here, it's in here, and it's out here as well, pulling it from out here, wherever you are. Now, granted, maybe being in a specific location can help you connect and pull with the ether around you, if you will. But at the end of the day, like, I remember growing up writing a bunch of shit when I was living in my dad's basement, and it's like, working a 9 to 5 every day, and then coming home and just writing in Guitar Pro, and that was a creatively prolific era of my life too. So it's, I think it's all about just being open to your environment, open to everything that's out there, and letting it flow through you and come out in the most honest and genuine way possible. So
I appreciate you saying that, because I've been guilty of that. Like I've been guilty of feeling like, oh, I'm in a certain part of my life, or I'm not necessarily where I want to be. Therefore, the creativity isn't. I blame that for like maybe a lack of creativity if I'm at a certain headspace. So I'm starting to develop, get away from that. But I appreciate the way that you put that. I think that's really a mature way to put that. So I mean, thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
And I bring up the trailer studio because I have friends who've put a lot of time, money, effort into their home studios where it's pretty much like on par with a full-blown studio. But then I also have friends, I mean, and me included, that my home studio is more practical, and I know, like, for you pushed out a handful of like pro records from this trailer studio? Like, how did you go about maximizing the space and the equipment that you had at the time?
Well, I guess the answer is fairly straightforward. I just, to answer your question with the same question, or to answer your question with the same sentence, is like, I quite literally just made use of what I had, you know? So like, I had a small space. It was designed, I built the trailer. It was designed around quite literally my guitars and my studio desk. Even though I wasn't producing at the time I built the trailer, it was still designed around music and creativity, my creative workflow. And it's, no, I just like, okay, I got my speakers here. I got my guitars here. I don't have room for amps or any, you know, analog equipment. So I'm all in the box. I'm all digital. I still am. I would love to get gear one day, but one step at a time. But yeah, it was just making the best use of the space I had. And again, this is another, like, we are very fortunate to live in a day and age where you can create a commercially viable product from your fucking laptop in your bedroom. You know, like, it's crazy, honestly. The barrier for entry is so low. And again, it's like kind of like going back to like managers and labels. It's like, they're still important, you know, like some, you know, if you're a band, you might need to use a manager, you might need to use a label. Just like if you're a band, you might need to go to a producer, you might need to go to a studio, you might need to shell out that cash for that, because that's what you got to do, you know, because you want to create the best product that you can afford. But at the same time, if you're not afraid of doing the work, you can do it yourself, or you can at the very least, you can try, you know. And if it doesn't turn out the way you want, okay, now it's time to go to someone else. You know, at least you tried, and from that experience, you're going to learn from that, you know, and get better. And maybe you try again. And maybe, oh, I didn't get it that time, but then you try again, and it's like, oh, now I got it, you know, like, and so that's really it's all about, just putting the effort in and giving it a shot, you know, shoot for the moon, land among the stars, or whatever that saying is. So, yeah.
Totally. And I want to shift gears to guitar a little bit. So, I mean, something that I really appreciate about you as a guitarist is you have this ability to take someone on a journey and tell a story on the guitar without even the need of like needing lyrics. And I guess tell me about like your writing process. Like what does Square One look like, and where does it, like, how does it evolve from there?
It's an interesting thing, because it's like, it can start from an idea in my head. It can start from me just fumbling around on the guitar, you know. It can all come out in 30 minutes or to an hour, a whole song, or it can take quite literally years to finish a song. And it's done when it feels right, you know. I know it's such an ambiguous thing, but these are semi-tangible things we're talking about, you know, in terms of composition and creativity and stuff like that. But no, I usually once I have an idea in my head that I feel is clicking, that I feel excited about, where I'm riffing around and I find something that I'm excited about, I'm like, oh, that feels good. That feels good. You know, I like that. And then you run with it, you roll with it. And, you know, in the past, it's always just been me writing by myself, but with DAA, Death and Anthology, it was all of us together. And like, the energy in that room was like fucking electric. Like, we wrote damn near 80% of that album in like 9 fucking days, you know, which was completely unheard of. Normally it would take me months, you know, to write an entire record, to write an entire Enterprise Earth record. And yeah, it was crazy, man. Like, it was nuts, like what we were able to do together. And that's why I'm excited to do it again.
Dude, hell yeah. So second part to that, when you're in a situation like where you have like writer's block or are unable to focus, like, how do you get around that barrier?
Mm-hmm. That's a tricky one too. The biggest thing to do is, honestly, for me, is to stop trying. And by stop trying, I don't mean give up. I mean, stop trying so hard to push yourself into something that's clearly not yielding results. So it can be something as simple like, okay, I go take the dog for a walk, or I just even step outside for 5, 10, 15 minutes, or all right, I'm going to go ride my bike for an hour and come back, or I'm just done for the day. I'll come back tomorrow, you know, because there's no juice left. So it's hard to be, you really have to be honest with yourself with that, because it can be hard to, you know, you're sitting there writing and it's like, all right, I'm writing a fucking song today, and then nothing comes out, and then you want to beat yourself up over it. And like, it's hard. You got to go easier on yourself with that stuff too. You have to put the effort in, but at the same time, it's like, you got to be kind and gentle with yourself too, and not beat yourself up over not being able to create bangers like every second of every day, you know? So it's as much as like I wish I could just sit here and piss riffs like all day, but I can't. I got to be in the right headspace. I got to be in the right mindset. It's got to be flowing. And if it ain't flowing, I don't want it. So
Yeah, totally. You said something, being kind to yourself. That is honestly, that phrase right there is something I've been telling myself for months at this point. I love the way you tied it into like the whole like writer's block thing, because something that I run into is like, if I finish like writing a song, I feel like when I try writing something, like it's just blank. It's just like completely blank. Like I find myself like having to force certain things, or just I don't know, like it just doesn't like feel right. You know what I mean? And I guess that's something like I'm trying to get over. Like I guess earlier on, like in your early days of playing guitar, is that something that you ever like ran into?
like that. Wait, sorry. Can you ask the question one more time? I was like thinking of the answer to the first part, and then you kept. I lost the answer. If you could just ask it one more time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Apology.
Yeah.
So I guess the first part is for me, like an issue that I feel like I run into is like as soon as I finish writing a song or like the EP or what have you, when it comes time to write again, I feel like it takes a while, because I just keep hitting just like a wall. It's hard for me to kind of like start again. Is that something that you ran into at all, like or in your early days or even now?
No, it happens all the time, and it's kind of like the same thing as the creative process. Sometimes you just got to take a step back, Again, it could be 5 minutes, could be fucking 5 days, could be fucking 5 weeks, which sucks. But, you just got to be open to what you're feeling and what feels right. But at the same time, if this is what you're doing, it's like there still needs to be a conscious effort. And I do feel like, having done this as long as I have now, like creativity is like a muscle, like it is something that can be trained, I believe. As ambiguous as the intangible as the things we're talking about now, I think it's something where it's like, okay, you get good at songwriting, you build your songwriting skills, just like you build your chops on guitar, piano, or vocals or whatever. Like it's like you find optimized workflows, you find optimized creative paths, you find optimized ways to get into your creative flow and stay there and figure out how to stay there and how to get there. So, and it's just like any other skill or anything in life. The more you do it, the better you get. So
I guess I've never heard it put that way. Exercising your creativity.
Exercising your creativity. Yes.
That's impressive. I get that's kind of mind blowing a little bit. So I guess, how does one start to become disciplined in that? Like you mentioned, just the more you do it, the better you get at it. Sure. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. And I know this might sound a bit contradictory to what I just said about like, okay, make sure you're feeling it, make sure you're within the flow, all that's some fun stuff. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So it's like, all right, if you don't go and at least try something, like nothing's going to happen. So maybe even if like it's just, okay, I'm just going to sit and write for 30 minutes, today or every day, and just see what happens. Nothing may happen, but you're going to learn about something. Okay, now I don't want this, or maybe you'll learn something about yourself that will help you going into tomorrow or the next session or something like that. Again, it's a skill, just like any skill. The more you do it, the better you get. And you got to do it if you want to get better at it. So.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Again, I felt like I've never heard that before. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome. Yeah. So is there anything right now that you're currently excited about, to be music related or anything at all?
Yeah. I mean, so I think I mentioned we have a writing session coming up for Enterprise at the end of June. The boys are coming in. It's going to be sick. We're going to write, have a good time, drink some beer, smoke some pot, write some riffs. It'll be fun. The new Dead Icarus album, it was submitted back in January. That's going to be coming out later this year. I won't give out too many details because we just got all those plans in order, and excited for future touring plans that we just confirmed for both bands.
Oh shit!
And no, I'm just excited for everything that's coming in the future right now. So I'm stoked.
That's awesome. And another question here: as the music business keeps evolving, is there anything that scares you right now?
Oh, everything. Dude, fucking life scares me, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's like, No, it's a scary thing to do, to undertake, and I've told so many people this. This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. In terms of, my what I'm focused on with my life. My career, my life. It's not. It's more than my career. It's quite literally my life. My entire life revolves around it, and it's scary to immerse yourself in that, and especially when it gets to the point where it becomes like your full-time job. It's like, that's scary too, because it's like, okay, now I depend on this to make a living, to get through life, to put food on my table. The rest of my band does. There's other people on the team that are now relying on us, for income and business and all that stuff. And that's just, as much as I would love for it to just be about the art, it's like, it's art, and the art and business have to work together, or else you will not survive. Unless another thing is like finding external sources of income as well, so you don't have to rely on your art as your business and your income, so you can give it all the room and breadth you want. That's another conversation though. But yeah, man, it's scary. I get scared every day, every time, there's lots of challenges. There's challenges every day. There's fires to put out every day. There's it's tough, man, but at the same time, as tough as it is, it's just that much rewarding too. So, as are most things in life, it's the balance, all the great things in life have a price to pay, so, or sacrifices to be made. Yeah,
totally. And to be honest, it's entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
exactly what it is. And I, you mentioned that it's scary, but at the same time, do you feel like, hey, this is what I was meant to do? So, you know what I mean? Like, do you have that sense of like feeling like, hey, it's tough, but I don't see myself doing anything else?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't see myself doing anything else in life. Maybe that'll change one day. I've always told myself, just like with anything in life, with living in the trailer, anything I've done, it's like, all right, I'm going to do this as long as I'm, especially with music, as long as I'm having fun, as long as I'm having a good time, as long as my heart's in it, I'm here doing it. I'll do it as long as I can, and the moment I stop having fun, like, I'm out, because then it's if it's not fulfilling to you in your life, then why are you doing it? There's, everyone's got their path in life, being a musician, being in a touring band, it's fucking cool. It's my dream. I'm quite literally living my dream, and I'm grateful for that every single day of my life. But if life were to direct me elsewhere, to where my purpose was needed greater, then sure, like, I got to go with that. You got to go with that. Anyone's got to, you got to be open to wherever life is directing you.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a stranger when it comes to like the logistics and the finances of touring. I've never been on tour, but I mean, recently I've heard from bands, even just like local promoters, that touring has gotten more expensive these days.
Yep.
And I know you've been in the game for a while now. Yeah. And I've got to say, like, I would imagine that y'all are feeling the impact of that as well. Like, how has it changed since you first got into the game?
I mean, touring's always been expensive. It's always been expensive. Because there's so much overhead. Like, if I showed you my expense sheet, like, I keep a spreadsheet for all our stuff, expenses and tour spreadsheets. If you saw like our spreadsheet for expenses to income, it's like, what the fuck? Like, why? It's a terrible business. Honestly, like, in terms of the amount of money you make for the amount that you have to spend. Until you get to a certain level. If you're a giant band, then yeah, you're going to be making a shit ton of money, obviously. But your expenses are also way higher too as a giant band. It's a ratio,
Sure.
And fuel has gotten way more expensive. Vehicle rentals, if you're renting, or even if you're owning, you got to learn how to fix your shit yourself or pay for labor. And if you're touring full time, you're going to put anywhere from 20 to 50,000 miles a year on your vehicle, which is a fucking lot of work to put on any vehicle, so you got to pay for maintenance and merch. And if you have, you pay your agent his commission for booking the shows. If you have a manager, you're paying him his 15%, and it's a lot, man. It's a lot. Yeah.
And I guess to go off that, what are some like maybe like other revenue streams that's your average consumer might not even know about that y'all are getting into to help keep everything afloat?
Sure. So most most active bands these days, touring is their main source of income. Guarantees and merch. Merch definitely is the largest for sure. It's like buying your band's buying T-shirts, and buying a T-shirt to show quite literally is the best way to support a band, because it's like a direct-to-consumer thing. It's not like you're buying it from their web store, because web store is another source of income for us, but it's not nearly as much as touring, selling merch on tour. Because you buy something online, it's like, okay, you got to pay for shipping and tax. And then we as the band, we have a fulfillment partner. We have to pay them to fulfill the merch, fulfill the merch orders and keep our shop organized and interface with customers and customer support and all that stuff. So, I mean, that's a revenue stream too. And now, like, what you're seeing is bands, doing distro through Blood Blaster themselves and collecting all their streaming revenue. And that's the way the game has changed a lot as well too. So now, like, you look at fully independent bands that have been independent their whole career, at least in our realm, like Shadow of Intent, Angel Maker, Darko, you can name a lot these days. And they have retained all of their streaming income, and that's basically passive income, because every time someone listens to your song, you make, pennies, but you're making something, I mean, that's awesome. And that just accrues forever. It's just going in there forever. Whereas if you're signed to a label, we just fulfilled our contract with our label. But, all that streaming revenue goes back to them because we took a loan from them, and we got to pay it off. So that's the thing with, and every situation is different. Like at the time we signed, we needed money. We couldn't do it ourselves. We were broke. We didn't come from money. We didn't have an external source of funding. We didn't have like high paying jobs where we could fund the band from. We didn't have parents that was going to help us out, or anything like that. So we needed money. So we had to sign a deal. Some bands don't need to do that, or you can just fucking power through and just figure it out. That's another option too. But it's hard, man. It's hard. But there are ways to do it. And then honestly, having an income source external of your band is, I think, vital. Like for me now, it's the studio. Still music related, but income from the studio. That's how I can make money when I'm not on tour, because I don't want to tour year round. That suck. It's brutal. Touring is exhausting. But yeah, I think that's vital too. Finding another income source outside of your band, so you don't have to rely just on your band.
Sure. I mean that's great advice. Absolutely. And you kind of you touched on it too. Just like there's bands now who are just doing the full independent thing, and with the advancements in technology thing, do you think we're going to see more of that? Just bands just doing it all themselves, and is that the right path?
I think it is, because it's like, why, if you can do it yourself, why would you take a loan from a label? And it's Monarch's been great to us. Like, I don't mean to sound like I'm talking shit. It's a shitty fucking loan. It's an awful loan. It's not like taking a car loan where you got 6 to 10% APR, and on $20,000 you'll pay 25 or some shit like that. No, it's like you borrow 40 grand from the label. The way the deal works is you got to make like 250 grand before it's paid back. Like it's rough. Like, and that's just because that's just the way it is in the music industry. That's how labels make money, and it makes sense. If I was the label, it makes sense. I understand. So like, it's hard. It's a hard game. Yeah.
And speaking on technology, how do you think AI is going to play a part, like in our scene in particular? So, I mean, we're already seeing like advancements in AI in music where people can just put in prompts and a full song comes out.
I mean, it's kind of scary, but it's also kind of fun at the same time. Like it's, I mean, maybe one day AI will be able to fully fucking output a completely human product, but right now it can't do it. I don't know if it ever will in our lifetimes. Maybe not. Who knows? It's an interesting thing, AI art. I know a lot of artists are mad about it, upset about it. AI music specifically is scary because, like, like you hear those Drake songs or those any songs that it's like, wow, that's pretty convincing.
Right.
Like that is, it's like you can like defame someone by tricking people that it's that person when it's not. It's the same thing with like deep fakes, And my favorites are definitely the Plankton from SpongeBob covers. I've always like the Plankton cover of Tools the Pot is, I love it. And it's just crazy how accurate it is too. You know, it's wild. I mean, hey, just like anything, like it's gonna happen. You can't stop it. You might as well figure out a way to roll with it and adapt to it. You know.
I agree.
Yeah.
And still on the same topic as AI, like I see that, you know, there's bands like utilizing AI artwork like for cover art and things like that. And I see like it's interesting to see like the fans' reactions to that. Like when there's certain fans where I see if they find out a band uses AI cover art, it's like they rebel against it. There's some who don't care or what have you. I guess what's your stance like on that, like using like AI as a tool, whether it be like for cover art or what have you?
I mean, I think it's pretty weak to just like input something in a computer and call it that's our album art, you know. It just feels a little disingenuous and low effort and flimsy and weird. It looks cool, don't get me wrong, it's really fucking cool. It's cool technology. I've seen some cases too where people they'll put their prompt into what's the fucking AI engine, image creating, I forget what it's called. Midjourney. Midjourney. They'll put the prompt in there, AI spits it out, and then they'll draw over that. So creating something organic from the AI, you know, at least, or maybe the AI created the image, but it's still being drawn by the human.
Sure.
I know it's still AI, obviously, but I don't know, maybe it can be a tool to just even offer ideas. Like, okay, I'm just trying to think of something, but I can't visualize it. And then you put it in Midjourney, and it's like, oh, I got an idea now. And then you go draw it. It's not going to be that. It's going to be something totally different, but it's going to be that. It's going to be what you wanted to make it. Maybe it just gives you the idea, you know?
Right. And I want to play devil's advocate a little bit. I'm not like siding with either or, but let's say, you know, if there's a band out there who might not have funds like to hire an artist to do like the cover artwork or a lyric video or even a music video. Like, I mean, we're already at a point right now where there's these AI tools to create full-blown lyric videos, album artwork for a pretty affordable rate. Like, do you think in an instance like that, it might be justified, or is it still...
It's hard to say, you know? I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, you got to make best with the tools you got at hand, you know? And if you can't afford to buy the big tools, then use the little tools, fuck it, you know? But at the same time, if one wants to create something genuine, you will figure out how to do that. You know, you will figure out how to get the money together to pay for an album artist to make your art. You will figure out, okay, all right, I'm either going to produce it myself, record it myself, or all right, I'm going to save money for my job, and we're all of us in the band are going to chip in $1,000 and go to the studio, you know, or some shit like that. You'll figure it out. I guess at the end of the day, if you want to do something bad enough, you will figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And you used an interesting word, genuine. I guess what makes like something genuine? I mean, this is probably going down a little bit of a rabbit hole on the devil's advocate thing, but it's a fun conversation because this is where our world's going to. But like, what makes a piece of artwork genuine in your opinion? Let's break that down.
It's just got to feel honest, you know, like an honest output of you as an artist.
Sure.
Whatever that may be, you know, it's got to feel like it came from inside of you, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's all it is. That's really all it is, you know. And we can define it in many ways, but at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is to me, you know. Does it feel like a representation of you coming out in your art?
Sure. And, you know, I guess the only reason why I bring that up in particular is, like, I remember when Midjourney first became a thing. I didn't even know what it was. I just remember being on Instagram and just, like, seeing, like, these really cool looking images and actually just, like, really kind of, like, digging it. Like, I'm saving it, like, to my favorites on Instagram. And it literally, like, 2 years later, I find out, oh, shit, that's AI. But like if I were to have seen that like in an art museum, I guess what I'm trying to say is like I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference between like maybe like an art piece that maybe somebody did like in Procreate or something that was like AI generated. Yet I feel like my feelings for both pieces that was more like, I guess, genuine versus AI, I wouldn't have been able to differentiate. Like both those feelings would have been same like as a consumer. You know what I mean? Like is that, I don't know, like is that like a problem? Like do you think, or is that, I guess that's more looking at it from the consumer's like point of view, you know what I mean? Like that's an interesting, another way to look at it too.
It's hard to say, man. Like, yeah, it's such a complex thing, you know, because from a all right, strictly from a consumer standpoint, I'd like looking at that stuff. It's cool to digest, you know, like
Right.
the art people create and the videos people create. And I think it's cool. Like, it's cool to look at, you know, for sure. There's nothing wrong with it in that sense. And that's why I think it's like, you know, there are ways that you can put work into doing the AI too. And people are creating some, like, honestly, very unique things with AI, you know, by figuring out the algorithm and tweaking it and learning from it and developing it. So who knows where it'll take us.
This is probably a good place to wrap it up, man. Let me just ask you this. Is there anything that you want to plug or, you know, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, and keep an eye out for new Enterprise Earth music and tours. Keep an eye out for new Dead Icarus music and tours. If anyone needs fucking studio work, hit me up. I'm open all summer, which is kind of nice, honestly, to have an open summer. But I am looking to take on work for the summer as well, mixing, mastering, what have you. So you can contact me via email. My studio email is studionessa99@gmail.com. Or you can simply find me on Instagram or Facebook or any of those places. I'm Death Metal Gypsy on Instagram. Shoot me a DM, and yeah, we can get it going.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button to stay on top of new episodes of Inside the Wounds.